Hello, my name is Nato and welcome to Evolve with Nato. In this channel, we cover a lot of topics, particularly on self-improvement and transformation journey. You get to hear me sharing my own personal experience. I'm also privileged to have conversations with my esteemed guests about their own self-improvement and transformation journey, whether in their personal life, professional life, spiritual life, financial management, just to name a few. So if this is the first time you're tuning in, welcome aboard. We'd love to have you here. And if you're a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. And if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, kindly ask you to do so. It will mean a lot to me. We're currently sitting at 431 subscribers, and we'll love to grow that number to a bigger family that we can reach out to and hopefully have their life transformed. So without further ado, I'm excited to talk about today's topic, and I should probably warn you, it doesn't necessarily fall in the realm or category of self-improvement and transformation journey. So if you know me personally, you probably know that I moved cities and provinces last year. I took a leap of faith, left the life that I knew for over 19 years and relocated to a different city and province. I used to live in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So for those of you who don't know where that is, New Brunswick is one of the Atlantic Canadian provinces. There's 4 of them: New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and PEI. So I used to live in New Brunswick, and I moved to Alberta. I moved to Edmonton, Alberta. So Edmonton is the capital city of Alberta, and Alberta is one of the 10 Canadian provinces and territories. So today, I'm going to share 4 things. I'm going to share why I moved to Edmonton, the things I like about Edmonton, the things that I don't necessarily care for, and whether or not you should move to Edmonton. So who is this video catered to? This video is catered for people who are thinking of relocating to Canada, particularly Edmonton, so for people who are outside Canada. This is also catered to people who are within Canada and are considering relocating to Alberta, especially to Edmonton. This video is also catered for those of you who are just curious about Edmonton. If you're in Canada and you want to learn about a lot more about Edmonton, or if you're outside the country and you just want to enrich your knowledge about Canada and Edmonton, this video might just be for you. So let's get into it. So I relocated here in July 2022 because of a job opportunity that I couldn't pass. It was just too good to be true. So I should probably be honest. That was August 2016. I visited Alberta for the first time. That was Calgary. I went to visit one of my closest friends, and I absolutely loved the city, but I didn't love it enough for me to move, at least not at that time. Fast forward 6 years after, I'm offered an opportunity to move to Alberta, and let me just say, it wasn't an easy decision to make. New Brunswick was all I had ever known ever since I was 18. I had a set of friends there, a house, a life that I was accustomed to, and uprooting myself didn't sound very appealing. However, I'd also declared that last year was my year of change. So after weighing the pros and cons, I packed the little that I had that I could move with and left everything behind in New Brunswick, including some of the people that I loved and cared for. We're still in touch. Let me not make it sound like we stopped talking or we stopped being in touch after I left. We're still very much in touch thanks to the digital world that we live in currently. So I moved to Edmonton, July 2022, and I am celebrating my 1-year anniversary of being here. So you'll get to hear what is it that I love about being here and what are the things that I don't necessarily care for. So let's get into it. I had to write a list just to make sure that I keep myself in track. So number 1, I love Edmonton because of the affordable costs of living. So let me expand into that. Alberta has the lowest tax rate in Canada. So most of the Canadian provinces pay two tax rates rather. You pay the provincial tax and you also pay the GST. In Alberta, we only pay GST, which is 5%. As such, the cost of living here is fairly affordable compared to other Canadian cities and, dare I say, provinces. The 5% goes a long way. I remember the first time when I was filling gas here, I actually thought I ripped the gas station, robbed them their money, because I looked at the receipt and I'm like, I just filled my tank and this is how much I spent. That was quite a far cry, because in New Brunswick, we pay 15% versus the 5%. Huge difference. So the cost of living is fairly affordable in terms of the day-to-day expenditures, in terms of housing, in terms of renting, whether you're looking to buy or whether you're looking to, rent. Life here is quite affordable. And I should probably add, I partially think part of the reasons why Alberta is affordable is because this province is rich of minerals, oil and gas to be more specific. It also has one of the highest levels of production for agricultural products. In terms of exports, I think Alberta is one of the top 3 provinces that export the most agricultural products here in Canada. So I think because of this and the revenues that are funneled back into the province can afford to give its residents a very affordable lifestyle by minimizing some of those expenses. As such, the tax rate that people have to pay. So we don't have to pay the provincial tax. Which brings me to my second point. Edmonton is very, very diverse. There's a lot of multiculturalism here. So if you're looking to move to a city that has people from different ethnic backgrounds that are being celebrated, different religious backgrounds, this is the place to be. Having lived in New Brunswick, I don't ever recall having an African restaurant. Here, I get to choose whether I want to go to an Ethiopian restaurant, whether I want to go to Nigerian restaurant, whether I want to eat a Tanzanian meal. And I'm from Tanzania. And trust me, it's not one of the biggest countries in the world, so rare would you find a Tanzanian restaurant. But here in Edmonton, I think we have 2 of them. So that tells you all you need to know about how diverse this place is. And people here appreciate and celebrate the diversity. You don't feel like an oddball out because there's just so many people who look like you, who maybe do the same activities as you. So if you're looking for a place that's affordable and has quite a diverse and multicultural population, Edmonton might just be the place for you. Which brings me to my next point. Edmonton is known as the city of festivals. So if you love festivals, Edmonton is the place for you, particularly over the summer. So 3 of the biggest festivals that get celebrated here include the Heritage Festival, the Fringe Festival, and Curry West. So Curry West is the equivalent of Caribana in Toronto. Maybe not of the same magnitude, but the same kind of vibe. So summer in Edmonton is buzzing. It's vibrant. You'd love it here. Which brings me to my next point. People in Edmonton are very passionate about the things they love, particularly the teams that they support. So before moving to Edmonton, I was never a hockey fan. I didn't get hockey. I'm a huge soccer fan, basketball, tennis, American football. Hockey just, I couldn't get into it until I moved here. So Edmonton, the home team for Edmonton rather is Edmonton Oilers. And when Oilers is playing, the whole city is shutting down. Whether they're playing in Edmonton or they're playing at a different destination, the whole city is vibrant. People are cheering for Edmonton Oilers, to the point that I have become a new hockey fan. I would actually drive myself out of my house to go to the nearest bar, especially Boston Pizza, to go watch hockey. It's actually one of my favorite restaurants. For those of you who know me, know why I like Boston Pizza. But anywho, and no, this is not a paid promotion for Boston Pizza, even though it would be great if they recognize me as one of their biggest customers and promote me. But I digress. The passion that Edmontonians have don't only is not only limited to the sports teams that they support, which is different sports teams. I just named Edmonton Oilers because that's the biggest. It also expands to the things that they believe in, whether it's religious beliefs or political affiliations. So if you're privileged to drive from Edmonton to head to Calgary, that highway, you'll see a lot of signages of people expressing their beliefs, whether it's political beliefs or it's religious beliefs. Something that I consider to be very admirable for people who, when you can find something that you're passionate about, as long as it's not harmful to other people, and extend for it, I think that's really, really admirable. Which brings me to the next point. Edmonton has a lot of green spaces. As such, you'll find people taking part in physical activities throughout the year, whether they're hiking, they're walking, they're riding a bicycle, they are skating and skiing, is particularly during the winter. But these green spaces rather, has afforded Edmonton to have, I think, some of the most physically fit people I've ever come across in my life. Even though I have to admit, you will never, ever catch me biking or walking willingly for a lengthy number of kilometers during -30 or -40. Not this girl. Forget about it. But I applaud the people who still enjoy physical activities during the summer and the winter. I would walk, run, hike during the summer, during spring, even fall, but definitely not winter. But here, most of the people indulge in all these activities throughout the year, thanks to the green spaces that the city of Edmonton has provided them with. Which also brings me to my next point. If you love shopping, Edmonton is the place for you. Edmonton has one of the biggest malls, if not the biggest mall in Canada, the West Edmonton Mall, where you'll find different vendors, designers, you name it. But if you're addicted to shopping, this may not be the place for you because you are going to break bank and possibly get broke. I am speaking from experience. So be very mindful when you're going to West Edmonton Mall. Stick to your budget because there's a lot of things that could lure you there, whether it's nice restaurants, whether it's gadgets, whether it's clothing. Just be mindful of that. But there's a variety of things to do and vendors to purchase from in terms of shopping. So yeah, the first few days I used to frequent that mall quite a bit. And after I started noticing my bank balance dwindling, I had to put a stop to it. So now I only go when I need to. But if you like shopping, as I said, Edmonton might just be the place for you, thanks to West Edmonton Mall. And last but not least, I have a lot of pros, but I had to narrow them down. There's a lot of jobs to go around in Edmonton, and I think partially to do with the vibrant economy, as I mentioned earlier. Edmonton is, or Alberta rather, it's an oil and gas province, and also Alberta has higher levels of agricultural and agri-food production. As such, there's a lot that gets funneled back to the economy, and that also creates jobs. So you can find jobs in government, you can find jobs in the IT tech sector, you can find jobs in the corporate world, you can find jobs in shipping and manufacturing. The university, we have University of Alberta here, McEwen University, and I think NAIT, and these are just off the top of my head. There's just enough to go around, and yeah, if you're looking for a job, affordable living, and just a vibrant city, Edmonton might be the place for you. So with all the good things, there's also cons. What is it that I don't care for in Edmonton? So I think these are very easy for me to recite off the top of my head. I don't even need to look at the paper. Number one, the weather. Yeah. I think when people say Edmonton gets cold, you just don't know how cold it gets, or Canada is cold, you don't know how cold it gets until you experience it. This place gets extremely cold and extremely hot. So I'll just focus on the cold right now. For those of you who are thinking of relocating here, and if you do have a vehicle, make sure that one, you invest in automatic start. If you can't do that, make sure that you have either a jump start or a block heater, a starter. I don't know what's the word, the cable. Make sure that you have that, because it's very easy for your car to be left outside and for it to just die. And you have to jump start it multiple times. So to avoid that, make sure you invest in those. I even went a step further. I made sure I live in a place that has heated garage. I didn't mind paying that extra so that I have a peace of mind. And if you're like me, you value a peace of mind and you can afford it, kindly do so. So speaking of the extreme weather, it's extremely cold, it's extremely hot, and the weather can be quite erratic. 1 minute it could be raining, the next minute it could be snowing, it could be sunny. So always prepare yourself for sudden change of weather. But all of those are things that I think are bearable. And if you have a dry skin like myself, this place can get quite dry. I think this is probably the driest I've seen my skin get. So if you can afford, invest in humidifier, make sure that you stay hydrated at all times and you're consuming foods that are keeping you hydrated, not just applying moisturizer, but drink your water and eat foods that help you with the hydration. Which brings me to the next point that's also related to weather. The roads here are bad, some of them, and I know they are working on like construction throughout, but because of the length of the winter, by the time it's done, there's a lot of potholes on the road. So be very mindful when you're driving. For those of you who are thinking of moving here, you could easily damage your car with these potholes here. But as I said, there's construction throughout the summer, which is my next point. Because of construction, there's a lot of delays in terms of moving around the city, whether you're in a bus or you're driving. I don't know if people who are walking or taking the train are impacted. I don't think so. I haven't taken a train or a bus, but I know some of my friends who take the bus, they will complain about how the traffickers sometimes impact them. But I know for those of us who drive, definitely. So when you're planning to move around the city, make sure that you budget your time, you plan around those possible delays. Otherwise, you're going to be late everywhere you go. Unless obviously you operate in AST, African Standard Time, which is a joke that my friends and I have. Which also brings me to my next point. When you're driving through the highways here, it's very easy for the debris to be splashed onto your car's window screen. I cannot think of the English word right now. And your mirror, is it mirror or it's a screen, could easily crack. So I have owned my car for over 6-7 years now. I never had a crack on my screen until I moved to Alberta. And I remember the sheer shock of that happening. And my friends are like, oh, that's just small. Trust me, it gets worse than this. So yeah, when I'm driving on the highway, I try to stay away from the bigger trucks, from people who are moving too fast. I'm like, you just move, especially during the winter. And when it's very, very dry, be mindful of that. Now, while we're still on the road, I have to say I've also observed some of the drivers here are very impatient and, dare I say, rude. It's very few of them, but they're quite noticeable. It was something that I had hard times adjusting to at the beginning, but now they do not faze me anymore. Like, they don't ruin my day. Just, I'll let you be rude at your own expense. It's not gonna bother me. Now, which brings me to my last 2 points. Transportation in Edmonton can also be quite a challenge, especially for those of you who probably are moving around with public transportation, or those of us moving with public transportation, particularly with the buses and the trains. The train doesn't go to every point or every part of Edmonton, and the buses, some areas, they run more frequently than others. So as such, it might be hard to get around the city. And the city is very, very spread out. It's big and spread out. So if you can afford to invest in a car, kindly do so. It will make your moving around, or your movements rather, more bearable as opposed to using a public transportation. But if you can't afford, just make sure that you're budgeting your time around the public transportation. Now, my last point, and I have to probably say I haven't personally experienced this, but it's something that I've been advised numerously by my friends and family who've lived here for a long time. Edmonton is known for its high crime rate. And this is compared to other Canadian cities such as Vancouver and Calgary. Personally, I have walked around certain neighborhoods where I've felt a bit unsafe and uncomfortable. I should probably also emphasize that the higher crime rate is mostly associated due to drugs or gang-related activities. So if you're not part of any of those, chances are you might not be impacted, at least not directly. So my only advice is stay clear, make sure that you're associating yourself with the right people. You're not going to the neighborhoods that are known for high levels of crime or gang-related activity or drugs. And while I'm on that, I should probably also point out that Edmonton also has high level of homelessness, which I think to a certain extent can probably also tie into people's mental health, and how it impacts the city as a whole, especially when you see people who are struggling with like their mental health and maybe the use of drugs and stuff, or even like just economic challenges. So yeah, and I know the government is doing their best to help people and combat that. That's just something that's way beyond my understanding, and all I can do is just hope and pray that everybody is safe in the areas that they live in. So that is it for pros and cons. I should probably have honorary mentions about things that surprised me about Edmonton. So number one, I've never seen people just leaving their cars in the middle of the, or maybe the side of the road on the highway or in city roads. It's very common here for people to just, like, the car has stopped working, they just leave it on the side of the road. The first time I saw that, I was worried. I was like, what if somebody breaks into your car and steal things? But it looks like people here maybe don't care about their car safety, or maybe the crime rate is not as bad in terms of stealing things from cars. I don't know. But I've taken a few pictures, and I unfortunately can't share them here because of the breach of the privacy. But I thought that was really strange. Now, the positive thing, or the positive thing that surprised me rather about Edmonton, is how friendly people are. Not just Edmonton, but all the places that I've visited in Alberta, and I travel quite a fair bit for work. Having worked in a call center a few months ago, we served different clients from different parts of Canada. And I remember some of my most difficult and rude clients were from Alberta. So I came here expecting the same kind of treatment, expecting the same kind of experience, and I was pleasantly surprised. People are really, really friendly. People are welcoming. And even in places where you can notice that there's a little bit of apprehension of people to interact with you, it usually stems from, I just need to know you a little bit better, which most of us probably are like that anyways. So that pleasantly surprised me. Like, people are really, really nice. So it probably is a no-brainer what my verdict is. I think you should move to Edmonton. And the city of Edmonton has not paid me for this promotion, but the pros definitely outweigh the cons in my own personal opinion. And I should have probably emphasized this earlier, that the opinions that I share are just reflective of me and my experiences, and in no way, shape, or form affiliated with any parties that I'm associated with. It's just me. So that said, there's a lot of good things happening in this city. As I said, it's very affordable. There's a lot of festivities, very multicultural. There's enough jobs to go around. But also there's cons that you have to be mindful of: the weather, the crime rate, and just the construction, all the things that are associated with the transportation system. So without talking too much, I would love to hear what your thoughts are about Edmonton. If you already live here, if you've visited Edmonton, and now that you have watched my video, would you consider moving to Edmonton? For those of you who are still tussling and rambling and thinking about whether or not to move to Edmonton. And for those of you who are just curious, I want to know a little bit about Edmonton, let me know what is it that you learned that you thought was fascinating and maybe surprising. That said, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your support. And another friendly reminder, if you have not subscribed, kindly do so. And make sure that you share this channel with your family and friends. I wish you all a lovely day, a lovely week, and happy July.